themselves individually. And I was in the service during the Korean War, which was about 1950 to 53. And I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to show you a few things from other wars and just in general, military, that you probably don't know. For example, I'm going to show you a picture that was kind of important. Hardly anybody would know who this is. But this man on the left is Tojo. And during World War II, he was the brains behind the war in the Pacific with the Japanese. And this man here, this is from Craig here, Jack Timmer. So this picture was in Life magazine. How many people locally in Craig get their picture in Life magazine? Well, hardly any would. But he got his picture in because he was in the military and he guarded this man during his trial at the end of World War II. And this fellow's still alive. Lots of the veterans are getting to where they're getting too old and they're dying now. In fact, there isn't any veterans alive from World War I. They're all dead. And there isn't very many veterans left from World War II because they're dying at the rate of 300 or 400 a day because there was 12 million of them. Anyway, this is a picture of a man who's in Craig right now. And as far as heroes go, there's several in Craig, but not very many left. One man that's still alive, his name is Lee Tucker. Do any of you know Lee? What relation are you to him?
He's my great-grandfather.
Your great-grandfather, what? Sure, okay. And he was pretty famous in the war locally because he got shot down out of an airplane bombing the Germans and was captured and was a prisoner of war. And then when the war was over, he got set free and repatriated. And one of the things that was kind of interesting, I think, is that he still won't eat cabbage after 70 years because that's all he got fed when he was in the prisoner of war camp was cabbage. Either cabbage soup or cabbage stew, cabbage any way they could fix it, I guess, cabbage salad. And he still doesn't really care much about cabbage. So, but that's one of the heroes from locally. Another one is a guy with the name of Ray Wagner. Do any of you know the Wagners? They have a business that the son does out east of town, the construction. But Ray Wagner was in World War II, and he's still alive, and he's still in Craig. He joined the Army in 1942. The war started in December of 41, so 1942 was just a few months after the war started. And his father lied so he could get into the service when he was 15. He wasn't supposed to be in the service, but he wanted to go fight. And so his father lied for him and told the draft board that he was older, so he got into service when he was 15. And the first battles of the war were in Africa. I have to pause once in a while because my brain doesn't catch up to what I want to say. The first battle of the war, World War II, for the Americans was in Africa. And he landed in Africa and fought in Africa, then in Sicily, an island off Italy, then in Italy, and finally went on up to France before the war was over. Well, when he got out of the service, he was only 19 years old. That's when they take most people to go into the service. He'd been clear through the war. He was wounded 3 times. And it was clear out in all of those experiences before he was 19 years old. That's kind of different. There isn't many people like that. Now, I was going to show you a couple other things. go back to, well, one thing is that they all carried, everybody, I had some, but I can't find mine. They called them dog tags. They were identification tags. Do all of you know what a dog tag was? Or some of you anyway. Well, let me show you a pair of them. Pass them around. It's hard to see. There was always two of them. This is on kind of a cloth string, but they usually, this is a real early one. This is from World War I. So this guy's been dead now 70 years. But I had a pair of them. Why do you suppose they used these, or why do you think everybody got them? Well, everybody had them. What do you think? To know what? Well, yeah, what?
To know, like, how many they sent to the one?
Well, not really. What do you think?
To know if they're on their team or not.
Well, sort of. What?
If, like...
Here, you pass those around.
Like,
They've got the fellow's name on them, is what they got on.
if somebody, like if somebody gets lost or something, that's fine when we can remember.
Sure, well, for identification, everybody had to wear those around their neck. So if you got shot, or maybe you was in a bomb, or blown to pieces, and all they could find were the dog tags, because they wouldn't get burned up, or they wouldn't usually anything happen to them. So it was more of an identification, especially in battle if something happened to them. And lots of times they'd find those, that's all there was maybe left, was the dog tags. So that was a pretty important thing, and everybody had them. Those are really old. Those go back to World War I, but World War II had them. I had them in Korea, in Vietnam, and in Afghanistan. Those were all, but everybody had to have a pair of dog tags. I can't find mine now. Usually probably when most people, when they got out of the service, they just threw them away. Some people kept them. That fellow kept his. Then I want to show you a couple of things that came from World War I, which is a long time ago, but that was a pretty important war. World War I was in 1914 to 1918. And it was, they had all the ways to kill people back in those days. These are wonderful.
Sweet.
I'm not smart enough to hardly know how to turn it off. I don't think they'll call again. They had all the ways to kill people that they do even now, but in World War I they used them, and the medical to cure people hadn't kept up with the way to kill people. For example, in World War I they used gas, poison gas, and they've not really in any scale used gas except in World War I. And everybody had to carry a gas mask. They did that in World War II, carried them, but because they were afraid that people would get gas, but they never did use them. Because they outlawed gas, but that didn't stop people if they really wanted to. But anyway, World War I was the only war that they used a lot of gas, and a lot of people got killed and sickened, and it ruined their lungs from gas. And it was the only war that had them. And out at the museum, because World War I, they used lots of horses in World War I. And we have a gas mask for a horse. And that's pretty rare. But if you didn't, it would kill the horse. And in addition to that, in World War I, they used a lot of carrier pigeons for messages, because they didn't have radio. And they had a cloth, kind of like a blanket, that was impregnated with the material that would destabilize the gas. And they put that blanket over the cages of pigeons, so they wouldn't all die. A lot of people don't know that. Anyway, World War I was a terrible time because they had all these ways to kill people. And I I'm gonna show you one thing here. One thing they, in World War I, they fought in trenches. They dug a deep trench, and they all were in a trench, and then right across, and the trenches weren't usually very far away. They were like from here to the window, or a little farther. That's where the Germans would be, in a trench over there, just a little ways away. You know what would happen if you'd stick your head up over the edge of the trench? You'd get shot off. If you stuck your head up over above the trench to look over there, the Germans would shoot your head off. So they passed these out to all the soldiers, and it's a real cheap made thing. It's just a wooden, periscope, and you look through it down here, and you could stick it up above the trench and see what the Germans were doing. Might save your life. So when you look in here, you can see out of it. You take it, then pass it around. But that kept you from getting your head shot off. Pretty important thing, wasn't it? And you might not appreciate it, but, and I don't know if any of your fathers use a shotgun, and they have tramp shooting contests where they throw out a disc, what do they call
Clay
it?
pigeon?
Huh?
The clay pigeon?
Yeah, like a clay pigeon, and they shoot them. Well, during World War I, the trenches were so close together that the enemy could take a hand grenade, which would be about the size of your fist, and throw it over to you. And so they issued lots of shotguns to the American forces, and they would then shoot the hand grenade as it was coming over, like a clay pigeon. That'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? You'd either shoot the hand grenade or it'd get you. So they'd get pretty good at it.